Hello beautiful people, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I am finally going to talk about something that I haven't spoken about since, and it's kind of been a big deal. I actually just was reminded about it from, a conversation that I had with a friend. Today I'm finally going to share a little bit about, my personal journey and why I resigned from my job, or why I left my corporate job. And I was actually reminded about it, just how far I've come, reflecting, and also just realizing that so much time has passed, but also so much transformation has happened, that it would be good to have a record of like why it happened, what led to it, and share a little bit more. I mean, I feel like I would be selfish not to kind of encourage someone out there by sharing my story, and that's why I always do it. So this friend of mine had also recently resigned from her job, and just talking to her, firstly just witnessing the beautiful transformation that it is to be on this entrepreneurial journey. It's a privilege, and as I said before, that entrepreneurship is one of the best self-development, self-mastery exercises of all time. You can give me 10 engineering degrees. I've done 2 of them already, and it does not compare to this journey. And so, we were going back obviously to like the whole story of why we resigned, and maybe a little bit of the build-up and a little bit of the drama. I'm not going to get into like the details, but just to share the essence of it, what is the more applicable and more beneficial side. So just a bit of background, I actually resigned towards the end of February time, so it's been a while. March was my last month in my corporate job, and I started my first day as an entrepreneur on basically like the open road on the 1st of April, which was April Fool's Day. And I was like, oh my word, am I the fool for resigning from my job? And somebody, one of a really good senior manager friend of mine that I had was like, actually, Corey, you would have been a fool not to follow your dream. And that was just actually so comforting, and just the nudge that I needed, and just like the little approval, which I appreciated. So April Fool's Day was my first day, being at home, starting my business, I had a business idea for a long time, and I really discovered this passion that I felt, okay, I really need to give this a proper go, because we just regret the things that we never did, and I didn't want to have to keep saying what if, and keep my dream and like expression of my creativity on the back burner. So I'm a really highly creative person, and I really needed to express that, hence the blog that I started a long time ago, hence my YouTube channel, my style blog and style posts. I'm constantly needing to express myself creatively, and I felt like that is what is in me, that's part of my gift, and to not pursue that, to not express it, is actually an injustice. It's part of my purpose, and it's what I should be living out every day. And for me, it was a betrayal of my potential, of my creativity, my power, my gifts, to not be living that out every day and spending my best hours, my best 8 hours in the day, those crucial times, on something that I just didn't care about, that I wasn't, extremely passionate about, didn't feel like I was working in my purpose and in my gifts. I was giving my dreams the scraps of my time, and I actually had a dream. I think for a lot of people, it's quite difficult, because the first question is, what is my purpose? What is my dream? I don't have a business idea, and first you need to work through those things before you can get to, okay, but now I need to really invest the time. And I was investing the time, but I was working every weekend, I was working every night, but it still wasn't enough. So first things first, I think I should start with a little bit of context and a little bit of a disclaimer. Firstly being that, this is definitely my own personal lived experience. It's my personal journey. Mine isn't yours, and it doesn't have to be, and that's perfectly fine. So, this decision that I made was informed by so many other things, and I'll get into some of those things, but perhaps, the details of that are actually for the next video. But when it comes to like how you should quit your job or whatever, maybe that should be a separate video. You can maybe share your thoughts and comments and questions with me down below, so that I can see where this content can be taken to be most helpful to you. Context is so important. As I said, it is my personal journey, and I am definitely not making this video to encourage people to quit their jobs. It's really personal. It's really depends on where you are in your life, depends on what season, and for me, it just got very real really quickly. I was at my company for 1 year and 3 months. It was actually going really well. There was a stint of like a dip, it was an interesting situation, because I always say that I feel like I had an accelerated experience. That experience where, if the end is that people eventually leave their job, and then there's a whole like story and like stacking and layering of that. Mine like happened very quickly, and it kind of just came to that same conclusion, and I recognized the feeling that I had. I recognized the conviction that I had. I've had it before when I left for Korea, which for me, it actually wasn't so much that I want to leave Korea and this is not a good place or whatever. It was more a pull of, you need to go back to Africa. Your future is there, your life is there, and I wanted to be part of contributing. So I had that conviction, actually. So I remember driving into work on the 7th of January and just realizing and feeling like it's time to go. There isn't much left here for you, and I mean, after 1 year and 3 months, right? And I'm really an intuitive person, so when those feelings hit me, the conviction is real, and I know that for me, God is definitely working in my life, and when I get something like that I'm so convicted about, that especially sometimes doesn't make sense to other people or to the world or to convention, then I know that it's time, it's coming from a higher place, and that it's time for me to leave, and this is the best decision for me and where I need to be and my purpose. So obviously at the time I was doing a lot of personal reflection. If you have been following me on my blog for a while, that you'll know that December, January time is a really extremely deeply reflective time for me. Obviously it's the end of the year, so you start reflecting on how things went, what went well, what could have been better, but also that it's my birthday on the 3rd of January, which also brings on a whole lot of, I am quite a reflective person, but brings on a whole lot of introspection and like evaluation and benchmarking of, how are things going? These things that you want, how are they going? Are you on your way there? Everything that you have on your plate, everything that you have on your life, is it like aligned and contributing to that thing that And I can't say that there's an exact something like a one-liner that is my goal in life, but I know what it feels like. And as I said, I'm quite intuitive, so I know when it's not working pretty quickly. And I feel before I think, so my sense is just really strong. And so when I came into work on the 7th of January, I just had it in my gut that, nope, this is not going to happen. And that moment, when I sat down to my laptop, when I opened it, I changed my password to March by March 2019. And it sounds funny, but I had reached that point where I was convicted, and I typed it into my laptop every day knowing that this is going to happen. Like, I need to take the leap of faith. And at the time I was looking for a lot of jobs, and funnily enough, so many doors just started closing like But inexplicably, to be quite honest, like there's nothing wrong with my CV. Like I am a really good candidate as an employee anywhere. I studied 2 engineering degrees. I've got a whole lot of different experience. I've worked on myself, so I have emotional intelligence to offer. I have the softer skills to offer from the experiences and out of comfort zone experiences and situations that I've put myself in. So it was really weird to go to interviews and I literally got reviews or answers from places that I was interviewing at saying you need to follow your dream. Out of nowhere, one of the really influential directors at one of the companies I was interviewing at just said at the end of the interview, listen, I'm not going to give you this job. I think you should follow your dream. And I mean, I hadn't discussed my dream with him. I hadn't even hinted at it. Obviously, I wanted this job. And the doors were just closing. I could not get a job. And I eventually just sat down and prayed. And I was like, God, what is happening? And at the time, funnily enough, the scriptures that I was reading were from Exodus. And I remember, during a long prayer session, taking the time to lay this before God and just thinking about it. And I read the words that God said to Moses that said, what is in your hand? I remember reading those words and it hit me so hard that this is it. I'm not going to get a job outside. This job, the stuff that I'm looking for is just more running away from my purpose and sidestepping it and thinking I need one more thing, if only I had a higher paying job so I could save more for what I wanted, or if only I had more experience. My friend and I were talking yesterday about how we are obsessed as young people with credibility, and that's why most of us go to jobs and corporate jobs just to get this credibility thing. And the truth is, it isn't always going to be like that. And this credibility, as I'll explain later, is a little bit of a farce. We go into corporate so hopeful and ready to learn, and we're ready to give so much. And we also really want to be mentored. We really want to grow. We really do want to contribute, contrary to what popular belief is among baby boomers, our parents' age, who think millennials are super entitled. No, millennials are so ready to give, but it needs to be purposeful, and meaningful work hinges on making a difference, and we really want to make a difference. And obviously all of that was going through my head in my reflection, looking at the year and how it went. I must say I really took a huge bite out of my company. I did so much extra work. I was never ever for a day or a second on the bench or on the beach, as we say in management consulting. I was always busy on a project, and I had awesome projects at that. So I was doing pretty well. I was getting the roles that I wanted. I was making the connections and growing the networks that I wanted. I was involved in all the right things for a soaring career or whatever. And I just realized, what does it all mean? Where is this all going? Yes, it's work, and yes, you might be succeeding, but am I really making a difference? Am I really changing the world? Am I really contributing to the world with what I'm doing right now? What I spend my 8 hours on, 8 hours per shah, that's a lie too, way more than 8 hours. I mean, if we think about the mental space, not just the time cost to it, but the mental cost to it, and how much it consumes you to be a part of something, to be a part of a company. It has a ginormous influence on your life. And for me, it just I was doing my sums and doing my calculations, and I was like, all things considered, the answer is error. does not add up, does not compute, error 404, like not happening. And I was really honest with myself, and I said, no matter what, I need to leave by March. And as I said, all the doors were closing. I had this message that I was really convicted by of like, what is in your hand? And then one day my husband was like, you know what, if you're really that unhappy with this role and you are not you're not manifesting your purpose, then maybe this is the time that you should start your business. And I was like, I mean, we hadn't discussed it in those words. And so for him to say that, and for him to like come out with that sentence, was like, that's it. I know what it is I need to do. I know what it is, like all of this is culminating to. And so, you know, we can really start with the end in mind. The whole reason that I actually started in my corporate job or my corporate role, I was specifically looking for a role in management consulting. Why? Because my end goal, where I wanted to always end up, was entrepreneurship. And some of you may know this about me, but I went to an MIT Global Innovation and Entrepreneurship Bootcamp. You know, that was an incredible experience. It's known to be like a crash course MBA, and you know, there are real lecturers from MIT who are there, and you know, they basically crash an MBA into a really short amount of time, and I got to go on that. I raised $6,000 to be able to go on there. And I knew that this entrepreneurship thing was like gnawing at me. It was like a little you know, like that monkey, what advert is that? That the monkey that you feed, I think it's Chicken Licken, and the monkey keeps on growing on you. And that's exactly what was happening. And I knew that I wanted to end up in entrepreneurship. I wanted to be with my children one day. I wanted to have that flexibility. I wanted to have that autonomy and mastery. And I felt like that was the ultimate like goal that would keep me satisfied as someone who's like highly creative, like to be busy, like to be involved in multidisciplinary activities, work with different people, love to innovate, love to ideate. All these things, you know, just led me to think the end goal is entrepreneurship. And the best way to get there, the fastest way to get there I can think of, is actually management consulting. Why not? You get to work with executives, you get to see what their biggest problems are, you get to solve their problems. What a fantastic way to learn about business than to work in other people's with like the top guys who, you know, can kind of show you what's going on. So, you know, I was like, okay, great, this is going to give me my credibility that I'm looking for. I'll probably be able to find fantastic mentors that I can really learn from. I'll probably get amazing, applicable experience. And that bubble popped pretty quickly. I got disillusioned pretty quickly, because you realize that, you know, the stuff that you think you'll learn, the stuff that corporate like seems to be when you are younger or watching series or whatever, is like completely different from the reality. And you know, I realized how little I believed in myself, and it also made me realize how much more I wanted out of life. You know, like I mean, I think companies don't realize that, you know, yes, younger generations are like keen to work remotely. We are more flexible and fluid with our time. We want to work on different projects and kind of be fluid in our careers, and chop and change directions and grow and whatever. And I know the argument is maybe you should be more of a specialist, but I just knew that this wasn't it. And for me, I always have said this before, and I you know, my friend and I have always also spoken about it, that like that you're always one decision away from a different life. And you know, it is all a decision. And I think the world, the construct, wants to always make you feel like you don't have choices, always makes you feel like you're on this one track and you need to stay on here, and it's all your career and. But I was like, there's no way, you know, I just simply don't subscribe to this. I don't believe this. What I believe is that I can get the life that I want. I can get the life that I ask for. And I feel like the people who discourage you along the way are probably usually, if you can do a little count, for me it's always the people who actually have never tried anything themselves, who are so afraid of change and, you know, being out of your comfort zone and doing something that you maybe don't have reference of in advance, that they will discourage you at any cost. And I'm so glad that I stuck to it. I have no regrets whatsoever, but it's just so amazing how, you know, taking that leap of faith, you know, I was called brave a lot. Taking that leap of faith is just an incredible thing. It's only scary at first, but once you do it, you realize how everything led to this point, and everything that has happened has moved this needle. And the scariest part is making the decision, but once you do, you don't regret it, because what's the worst that can happen? And another thing I was speaking to my friend about, that I also was thinking, is that, like, the time's going to pass anyway. You know, one of the managers used to tell me, like, he'll start his business when he's 40 years old. And I'm like, but why don't you just start it now? What's stopping you? Why not do both until you're 40 years old and then you leave? But at 40 years old, you might again get there and be like, I'll start my business when I'm 50. And the truth is, you only get one life. The time is passing anyway, and you need to make a decision about the kind of life you want, the kind of person you want to be. And, you know, I just promised myself that I have to make myself proud. I have to take a step forward. And if I fail, I must fail forward and fail fast. But, you know, I don't know what's coming. You know, at the time, I didn't know what was coming, and what's happened since has been incredible, beyond my wildest dreams. The kind of opportunities I've gotten, never would have thought, but I had to take that leap of faith first. That's a video for another time, but I just, I just really want to share, you know, that encouragement with whoever might need it. That encouragement with taking a leap of faith, not necessarily quitting your job. I must say, I know I'm in a really privileged position to have a husband who can support me. I wasn't saving for months and months because I didn't make my decision so long in advance. But I had a husband who would support me. I'd have a place to stay. I'd have food to eat. And I just had a feeling also that I wouldn't not be making money for too long. Just because I wouldn't allow myself. I don't want to be a bum. I don't want to live off of other people's stuff. So for me, I knew I wasn't determined enough to make something happen. I didn't know at all what that was, but I knew I was going to make it happen.